By the time Alara carried the 26th cup into the royal dining chamber, 25 healers had already failed to explain why Alpha King Ronan was getting worse. The room smelled of crushed herbs, sweat, hot stone, and fear. Ronan sat at the long table with one hand braced against its edge, his shoulders rigid beneath a dark shirt soaked through at the collar. A tremor ran through his fingers hard enough to rattle the silver spoon beside him. Every few breaths, his jaw tightened as if he were reaching for something inside himself that would not answer. His wolf. Alara kept her eyes lowered as she crossed the chamber. Omegas who served inside the royal wing learned quickly that being unnoticed was safer than being useful in the wrong way. Royal healer Varric stood beside Ronan with another measured dose of tonic. Around him, the other healers spoke in low, frustrated voices about fever, exhaustion, damaged shifting, and possible infections. None agreed on the cause. All agreed on one thing. The king needed more medicine. Alara set the water pitcher down. Then she smelled it. Her hand stopped above the tray. The tonic carried the expected bitterness of moon leaf and dried red root. But something thin and wrong rested beneath it. A mineral sweetness. Almost hidden. Almost familiar. She had smelled it years ago while sorting medicinal roots in an herb house, separating safe stock from plants that could weaken an animal if mixed incorrectly. Alara looked at Ronan. Varric lifted the cup. Ronan reached for it with a trembling hand. And Alara remembered what had happened after the previous dose. When she had entered with fresh linens less than an hour earlier, Ronan's fingers had been steady enough to sign an order. Minutes after drinking Varric's tonic, the shaking had begun again. The cup touched Ronan's fingers. Alara moved before she could reconsider. She caught the rim. The chamber went silent. Varric stared at her hand as though she had struck the king. Release it. Alara did not. Two guards stepped forward. Ronan raised his eyes to her. Even weakened, the force in his stare made her pulse jump. Who are you? Alara, your majesty. A waitress, Varric said. Sharply. An Omega servant who has forgotten her place. Alara felt every gaze turn toward her. Varric pulled the cup from her hand. Remove her. The guards closed in. Ronan lifted one shaking finger. They stopped. He studied Alara for a long moment, breathing hard. You interrupted 25 healers, he said. Give me one reason not to have you thrown out. Alara looked at the cup. She could not prove what the strange scent meant. Not yet. But she could say what she had seen. Because your hand was steadier before the last dose. Varric's face changed by barely a fraction. Alara met the Alpha King's eyes. Your medicine is making you worse. For one heartbeat, no one moved. Then Varric gave a short, disbelieving laugh. Your Majesty, she is confusing the progression of your condition with the effects of treatment. Maybe, Alara said. Several healers glanced at her, apparently surprised she had admitted the possibility. She pointed toward the cup. But that tonic doesn't smell the way it should. Varric's expression hardened. And now the waitress intends to diagnose medicine by scent. I sorted medicinal roots before I worked here. That does not make you a healer. No, Alara kept her voice steady. Claiming more than she knew would only make it easier to dismiss what she did know. Ronan's fingers tightened against the table. What smells wrong? Alara looked at the tonic again. I need a minute. Varric stepped between her and the cup. This is absurd. 1 minute, Ronan said. The healer turned. Your Majesty, 1. The warning in Ronan's voice ended the argument. Varric placed the cup on the table. Alara leaned close without touching it. Moonleaf came first, sharp and bitter. Dried redroot beneath that. Two other familiar medicinal scents blurred together in the steam. And underneath them was the same mineral sweetness. She examined the prepared ingredients beside Varric's case, smelling each separately until she reached a dried restorative root. There, but not exactly. Alara frowned. What? Ronan asked. This one should smell earthy when dried, bitter when cut. She indicated the root without claiming certainty she did not have. Something in. Your prepared tonic is close to it, but there's another scent underneath. One healer stepped nearer. That proves nothing. I know. Varric folded his arms. Then her minute is finished. Alara turned to Ronan. When did the shaking become this severe? Today, one of the healers answered. After which treatment? Silence followed. Alara looked around the chamber. And the episode before this one? An older healer frowned at the notes in his hand. After the afternoon dose. Another healer checked his records. The morning tremors also worsened following treatment. Varric's voice sharpened. Because his illness is progressing. That is why the doses were increased. It was a reasonable explanation. That frightened Alara more than if it had been obviously false. She could smell something wrong. She could see a pattern. Neither proved why it was happening. Varric reached for the cup. Every minute we delay increases the danger. Alara stepped forward. Then don't give him another dose yet. A guard shifted beside her. Varric stared at her. You are asking the Alpha King to reject the judgment of 25 trained healers because an Omega Waitress remembers the smell of a root. No, I'm asking him to wait long enough to test whether I'm wrong. Ronan watched her through another tremor. And if you are? Alara knew what sanctuary meant to an Omega without rank or family protection. She also knew what interfering with royal treatment could cost. If I'm wrong, remove me from royal sanctuary. The room became very still. Ronan's gaze sharpened. You understand what you're offering? Yes. Varric shook his head. Desperation is not evidence. No, Alara said. Neither is authority. That earned several startled looks. Ronan's mouth tightened, though she could not tell whether from pain or anger. Then he pushed the untouched cup away. We wait. Varric went pale. Your Majesty, you wanted evidence. Ronan leaned back, breathing unevenly. Now we get some. Minutes passed. Alara remained beside the wall under guard while the healers watched Ronan as if waiting for him to collapse. Instead, something small changed. The silver spoon stopped rattling. Ronan looked down. His hand was still trembling, but less than before. The older healer moved closer and examined it. The tremor is easing. A murmur passed through the room. Alara felt relief, but she forced herself not to mistake it for victory. They had proved only one thing. Withholding the next dose had not made Ronan immediately worse. It did not prove what was inside the medicine, who had put it there, or even whether the tonic was truly responsible. Varric seemed to reach the same conclusion. A temporary fluctuation, he said. Nothing more. Ronan looked from his steadier hand to Alara. Then find me something more. Something more meant the preparation room. Ronan ordered 2 guards to accompany Alara and instructed the healers to give her access to the ingredients used in his tonic. Varric objected, but the Alpha King's expression ended the argument before it began. Alara carried the untouched cup herself. The preparation room lay beyond the dining chamber, lined with shelves of dried roots, sealed packets, grinding bowls, and labeled jars. She placed the cup on an empty table and asked for samples from the ingredients used to prepare it. Varric watched from the doorway. Try not to confuse familiarity with expertise, he said. Alara ignored him. She started with the untouched ingredients, separating their scents one at a time. Moonleaf, redroot, bitterbark, the restorative root she had noticed earlier. Then she returned to the residue inside Ronan's cup. The difference was clearer now that steam no longer clouded the mixture. That mineral sweetness remained. Memory came with it. Years ago, the herb house where Alara worked had received 2 bundles that looked almost identical after drying. One restored strength when properly prepared. The other was never stored beside animal remedies because repeated exposure could weaken a wolf's responses. She straightened. Ronan had followed them into the room despite the healer's protests. One hand remained braced against the wall, but the tremor had eased enough for him to stand without assistance. You recognize it, he said. I recognize what it resembles. Varric scoffed. Another careful answer. It needs to be. Careful. Alara pointed toward the residue. There may be a suppressive herb mixed with the restorative root. They can look similar once dried. Ronan's gaze sharpened. Suppressive? It can weaken a wolf's response with repeated exposure. But I can't tell you how much is here from sin alone. One of the healers moved to the cup and examined it. Ronan looked at Alara. Then someone contaminated my stores. That would be my first guess. The words left her mouth before she fully considered the alternatives. Ronan immediately ordered the main medicinal supply opened. Sealed containers were brought from storage. Alara checked the restorative root first, then every related bundle the guards placed before her. She smelled them twice. Then a third time. Nothing. No mineral sweetness. No suppressive scent. Her stomach tightened. Varric noticed. Well, the main supply is clean. Silence settled over the room. Varric's smile was small and merciless. So the contamination you confidently proposed does not exist. I said it was my first guess. And it was wrong. Yes. Ronan studied her, perhaps waiting for an excuse. Alara gave him none. Varric turned toward the healers. We have delayed necessary treatment because a servant recognized a childhood smell and built a theory around it. Alara looked from the clean roots to the cup. The contradiction bothered her more than Varric's contempt. The wrong scent was real. The treatment pattern was real. But if the stored ingredients were clean, something had to happen after they left storage. Ronan stepped closer. How did you learn this? Alara looked up. By sorting roots. That isn't what I asked. She hesitated. I spent years doing the work nobody else wanted. Spoiled bundles, mislabeled roots, damaged stock. If I made a mistake, someone could get sick, so I learned what each one smelled like. Ronan glanced toward the healers, then back at her. You learned because you had to. Yes. For the first time since she had stopped his cup, his attention held no amusement and no dismissal. Only consideration. Then Varric broke the silence. Consideration does not change the evidence. The stores are clean. Alara looked. Again at the cup. He was right about that. And suddenly, that fact mattered more than her failed theory. If the supply is clean, she said slowly, but what reached the king isn't. Ronan followed her gaze. Alara turned toward the preparation table. Then we need to find out what happened between the storeroom and his cup. Alara's question sent them to the treatment records. A narrow ledger rested inside a cabinet beside the preparation table, its pages filled with dates, doses, packet numbers, and the initials of the healers who administered them. Ronan ordered it placed before her. Alara did not search for names first. She searched for patterns. When were your worst attacks? She asked. One healer opened his notes. The severe morning tremor. The afternoon collapse. And the episode before she entered the dining chamber. Alara traced each treatment backward through the ledger. All 3 doses had been prepared from individually sealed packets issued from the same recent batch. She checked earlier entries. Different batch. Milder symptoms. Her pulse quickened. This. Ronan came beside her. She showed him the repeated packet code. The central supply we tested was clean. But these doses weren't prepared directly from that open stock. They came from sealed treatment packets. Varric stepped closer. Packets containing the same approved ingredients. Then we should inspect them. One of the healers nodded reluctantly. There should be several remaining. For the first time, Varric's composure visibly tightened. Only for an instant. Then he turned toward Ronan. Your Majesty, this has gone far enough. Your condition is unstable, and the gathering is approaching. We are wasting the hours in which treatment might still restore your strength. Ronan's face had grown paler since leaving the dining chamber. His fingers curled against the table as another tremor passed through them. Varric seized on it. You need rest and immediate medical intervention. Not another servant's investigation. Alara looked at Ronan. She could not promise the packets would prove anything. She could not even promise the scent she remembered explained his symptoms. Ronan saw the uncertainty in her face. How certain are you? That the records show a pattern? Certain. That the packets were altered? I don't know yet. Varric exhaled sharply. Exactly. Ronan remained silent for several seconds. Then weakness decided what argument could not. His knees nearly buckled. The guards moved toward him. Varric caught his arm. Enough. Clear the treatment room. This time Ronan did not resist. Alara was ordered outside with the guards while the healers stabilized him. The door shut between her and the ledger, the packets, and the man whose life might depend on both. She waited in the corridor, counting breaths she could hear through the wood. When the door finally reopened, Ronan remained inside under observation. Alara returned immediately to the cabinet. Bring out the remaining packets from that batch. A healer opened the storage compartment. He stopped. They counted once. Then again. The ledger showed one more packet should have remained. It was gone. Alara stared at the empty space. Varric appeared behind her. How unfortunate. She turned. His gaze dropped toward her hands. Then toward the cabinet. You were given access to this room, he said. Alara understood before anyone else spoke. One of the guards looked at her. Varric addressed him calmly. She handled the king's cup. She examined the ingredients. She stood beside this cabinet while claiming his medicine had been contaminated. I was never alone with it. But you had access. The older healer frowned at the ledger. The inventory discrepancy must be investigated. It will be, Varric said. Starting with the person who arrived today knowing exactly what scent we should supposedly find. Alara's stomach went cold. Minutes ago, The ledger had been independent support for her suspicion. Now the missing packet made her part of the evidence. Ronan's voice came weakly from behind them. No judgment. Everyone turned. He stood in the doorway, supported by one guard, his face drawn with exhaustion. Varric stepped toward him. Your Majesty, she had opportunity. And you have suspicion. Ronan's gaze moved to Alara. Not proof. Varric's jaw tightened. Ronan looked at the ledger, then at the empty compartment. Secure the records. Secure her too. Alara did not protest as the guards approached. Because the question had changed again. Someone had removed the one packet that might have told them what was happening. And whoever had done it now wanted the investigation to end with her. The guards did not take Alara far. Ronan ordered her confined in a small consultation room adjoining the royal treatment chambers, close enough that she could be questioned but separated from the medicine, the ledger, and anyone who might accuse her of touching either again. The door closed. For several minutes, Alara stood beside the narrow table and replayed everything she knew. The strange scent, the worsening tremors after treatment, the clean central supply, the sealed packet batch, the missing packet. She had been so focused on finding what was making Ronan sick that she had never asked why anyone would choose this method. If someone wanted the Alpha King dead, there were simpler ways. Why weaken him gradually? Why use something subtle enough to resemble illness? Why let 25 healers keep treating him? Alara remembered Ronan reaching inward for his wolf and finding nothing. Not pain. Absence. The consultation door opened. Ronan entered alone and shut it behind him. He looked worse. His skin was pale, and one hand pressed briefly against the table before he lowered himself into the chair opposite her. The council wants you removed from the palace, he said. Varric wants you judged for interfering with my treatment. Alara almost smiled. That was predictable. Ronan did not. The gathering begins tonight. She had heard servants mention it, but until now it had seemed unrelated. What happens there? Pack leaders confirm their allegiance. I demonstrate my shift before them. Alara went still. Ronan noticed. What? She crossed to the table. Your fever isn't the strangest symptom. My inability to shift. Yes. That began with the illness. Or the illness was meant to make us think that. His eyes narrowed. Alara chose every word carefully. The herb I remember wasn't feared because it killed wolves. Repeated exposure weakened their responses. Suppressed them. Ronan stared at her. The room seemed to contract around them. If someone wanted you dead, Alara continued, why spend days making your medicine slightly wrong? Why risk healers noticing? Why keep you alive? Ronan's expression changed. A challenge. If you fail tonight, what happens? My fitness to rule can be formally challenged. There it was. Alara felt the pieces shift into a new shape. They had not been asking how to stop a mysterious disease. They had been asking the wrong question. Someone may not need you dead, she said. They need your wolf gone long enough for everyone to see you fail. Ronan stood too quickly. His knees weakened, and Alara instinctively reached toward him before stopping herself. He caught the table instead. Neither mentioned it. Who? He asked. I don't know. You suspect Varric. I suspect the medicine. He controls the medicine. That isn't proof he altered it. Ronan stared at her as if he had expected accusation and did not know what to do with restraint. You're confined because he accused you of tampering with it. I know. And you're still refusing to accuse him. I was wrong about the storeroom. Alara held his gaze. I won't replace one wrong assumption with another because this one is convenient. Something in Ronan's face eased despite the exhaustion. He crossed to the door and opened it. A guard waited outside. Return the ledger and surviving packets to the preparation room, Ronan ordered. She examines them under guard. The guard hesitated. Your Majesty, the council, can question my decision after I survive long enough to hear them. Alara stepped toward the doorway, then stopped. Why are you trusting me? Ronan looked back. I haven't decided that I trust your conclusions. Then why give me access? Because everyone else keeps telling me what they know. His gaze settled on her. You're the only person who keeps telling me what you don't. For the first time since she had stopped his cup, Alara understood that his attention had become something more dangerous than curiosity. Expectation. She walked back toward the preparation room under guard. The missing packet still made her a suspect. The altered medicine remained unproven. Varric still controlled the strongest version of the story, and the gathering was getting closer. But Alara finally knew what she was looking for. Not the cause of a disease. The hand that needed an alpha king alive, conscious, and unable to become a wolf. The preparation room looked exactly as Alara had left it, except the ledger and surviving packets now sat together beneath the eyes of two guards. She ignored the written records at first. Instead, she arranged the packets beside an untouched seal from the main medicinal supply. Same pale wrapping. Same stamped emblem. Same dark wax. Almost. Alara lifted one surviving packet toward her nose. There was the expected scent of wax and dried herbs. Then something else. Faint. Trapped beneath the seal. She closed her eyes and smelled it again. What is it? Ronan asked from behind her. He had insisted on coming despite his weakness. He remained near the doorway, conserving his strength. Alara picked up the untouched supply seal and compared it. This wax smells clean. And the other? Like herbs. One healer frowned. They contain herbs. Not on the outside. Alara turned the packet beneath the light. A thin ridge ran around the stamped emblem. It was nearly invisible unless someone knew to look for damage in stored goods. She had seen the same thing in the herb house when workers opened sealed bundles to remove spoiled stock, then softened the wax and closed them again. This was opened. Varric, standing beyond the guards, gave a contemptuous sigh. Based on another smell? Based on the seal. She showed the ridge to the older healer. He examined it, then compared it with the untouched wax. His expression tightened. It has been reheated. Ronan straightened. Alara pointed to the faint distortion. Someone opened the packet, changed something inside, then resealed it. The room fell silent. It was more than a suspicious scent now, but not enough. Ronan looked toward Varric. You control preparation access. So do several healers, Varric replied immediately. And servants enter these rooms. His eyes settled on Alara, especially this servant. Alara felt the counterattack before he finished. Varric turned to the guards. Ask the kitchen supervisor what herbs she has handled since entering royal service. You will find that our gifted waitress has worked with the same family of roots she now claims was substituted. The older healer looked uneasy. Varric continued. She knows their scents. She had access today. A packet disappeared after she entered this room, and now she conveniently discovers evidence that it was opened. The accusation was stronger than before because parts of it were true. Alara did know the herbs. She had entered the room. A packet was missing. Ronan's face hardened. Varric stepped closer. Your Majesty, the council is already gathering. Hand her over before this becomes a public scandal. Alara looked at Ronan. Protecting her personally would prove nothing. Worse, it could make every piece of evidence look like the desperate justification of a weakened king defending a favored servant. Don't protect me, she said. Ronan's eyes snapped toward her. Varric almost smiled. Alara continued, protect the evidence. The smile vanished. Seal the ledger. Seal the remaining packets. Record who touches them from this moment forward. Let someone outside the treatment chain guard them. Ronan studied her. And you? If the evidence points to me, then it points to me. You could lose sanctuary. I already offered that. His jaw tightened. Alara lowered her voice. Believing me isn't enough. If you want the truth, make it impossible for anyone, including me, to change what remains. For several seconds, Ronan said nothing. Then another tremor moved through his hand, stronger than the last. Varric noticed immediately. So while she lectures us about procedure, he said, the king continues to deteriorate. He opened his medical case. The gathering is almost upon us. His Majesty needs treatment now. Alara's attention shifted to the concentrated restorative mixture inside. The same familiar ingredients. The same promise of strength. And beneath them, even from several feet away, the faint scent she had learned to fear. Ronan looked at the medicine. Then at Alara. This time, the question between them was no longer whether she had noticed something real. It was whether he would trust that evidence when trusting it might cost him everything the medicine promised to preserve. Ronan looked at the concentrated mixture for several seconds. Then Varric reached for the cup. No, the single word stopped him. Varric's hand remained suspended above the medicine. Your Majesty? No more treatment. Shock moved through the healers. Varric recovered first. Your condition is deteriorating. Without this dose, I cannot promise you will remain strong enough to stand before the pack leaders. Alara could not promise that either. That was the part she hated. Stopping further exposure might prevent more suppression, but nothing she knew could tell her when Ronan's wolf would return. She knew herbs through years of handling them. She did not know some hidden cure the royal healers had missed. Ronan looked at her. If I refuse it, will I be able to shift tonight? Every person in the room waited for her answer. Alara could have given him hope. Instead, she gave him the truth. I don't know. Varric seized the words. Then she is asking you to gamble your rule on ignorance. No, Alara said. I'm asking him not to swallow something we have evidence was tampered with. And if his wolf never surfaces? Then I was right too late. The admission hurt more than any accusation. Alara stepped toward Ronan. I can recommend stopping what may be causing this. I cannot invent an antidote because you need one. The distant territory bell sounded through the palace. The gathering was beginning. Ronan's shoulders tightened. Varric lifted the cup again. One concentrated dose may restore enough strength for the demonstration. Alara smelled the faint mineral sweetness even before the liquid moved. Or ensure he fails it. Varric turned on her. You have no proof of that. Then neither do you have proof it's safe. Ronan pushed the cup away. Seal it. Varric froze. Ronan turned to the guards. The ledger, every surviving packet, every seal, and that cup are evidence now. None remain under the treatment staff's sole custody. Your Majesty, Varric said, you are suspending royal medical authority on the word of an accused servant. On evidence you have not explained. Ronan's voice was weaker than before, but the command behind it was unmistakable. Varric, your authority over my treatment is suspended until this is resolved. The room went silent. Alara understood what he had done. If she failed now, Ronan would not merely look sick before the gathered leaders. He would look like a king who had rejected 25 healers for an Omega waitress already suspected of tampering with his medicine. He had made his trust public before it could reward him. Varric's face hardened. The council will hear of this. They're about to. Ronan ordered guards outside the medical chain to take custody of the evidence. Each item was counted before it left the table. The treatment ledger, the surviving packets, the comparison seal, the residue from his earlier cup, and the concentrated dose Varric had just prepared. Alara watched until the final packet was secured. Only then did Ronan move toward the door. His first step was steady. His second was not. Alara caught his forearm before he struck the table. For a moment, neither moved. His skin burned beneath her fingers, and the wolf inside him remained terrifyingly silent. You can still delay the gathering, she said quietly. No, you may not be able to shift. I know. If you walk into that hall like this, they'll see exactly how weak you are. Ronan looked down at her hand on his arm, then into her eyes. They were always going to see that tonight. His gaze shifted toward the sealed evidence being carried into the corridor. Now they'll see why. He straightened without pulling away from her until he had his balance. Then Alara released him. The territory bell sounded again. Beyond the corridor waited the pack leaders, the challenge Varric had warned about, and a king whose wolf might not return in time to save his rule. Alara followed Ronan toward the gathering hall. She had stopped the medicine. She had helped preserve the evidence. But she had not saved him. Now she had to prove the truth before his weakness became someone else's victory. The gathering hall was already full when Ronan entered. Pack leaders lined both sides of the long chamber, their conversations dying as they saw how carefully their alpha king walked. Alara followed several steps behind him while independent guards carried the sealed evidence to a central table. Varric entered last. He did not wait to be accused. Look at your king, he said. Hours ago, he was receiving treatment. Then an untrained Omega servant interfered, convinced him to reject his healers, and left him barely able to stand. Murmurs spread through the hall. Alara felt every eye turn toward her. Varric pointed at the evidence. She handled his cup. She had access to the preparation room. A medicinal packet vanished after she entered it. Now she asks you to believe the treatment itself caused what you see. Ronan remained standing. He did not defend her. That was exactly what Alara had asked of him. Open the evidence, she said. The guards broke their custody seals. Alara began with the first cup. His worst tremors followed his doses. When the next dose was withheld, the tremor eased instead of immediately worsening. The older healer stepped forward reluctantly. I observed that change. Independent confirmation. Alara opened the treatment ledger. The strongest episodes correspond to sealed packets from one recent batch. Varric shook his head. Correlation. Yes. The answer unsettled the room more than an argument would have. So we tested the central medicinal supply. It was clean. Varric spread his hands, which disproves her accusation. No, it changed it. Alara placed an untouched supply seal beside one from the surviving treatment packets. If the main stock was clean, but the prepared medicine carried a different compound, the change happened after the ingredients left storage. She indicated the distorted wax. This packet was opened and resealed. The older healer examined both seals before the gathered leaders. The wax on this one was reheated, he confirmed. Varric's expression tightened. Alara lifted the residue from Ronan's earlier tonic, then the concentrated dose Varric had attempted to administer before the gathering. The same wrong scent is present in both. Another healer stepped forward at Ronan's command. Alara handed him the samples without telling him which was which. He examined them carefully. His face changed. There is a second root compound in the prepared mixtures. The hall erupted. Varric raised his voice above it. That proves contamination, not responsibility. She knows these roots. She admitted handling them. And that is why my knowledge isn't the final proof, Alara said. She turned the ledger toward the pack leaders. The affected doses came through a controlled preparation chain. The surviving packets were altered after leaving clean storage, then resealed before administration. Their issue records placed them inside the authorized treatment supply. Ronan's gaze settled on Varric. Varric went very still. Alara continued. And the compound explained something none of us understood at first. It wasn't chosen simply to make the king sick. She looked at Ronan. It was chosen to suppress his wolf. Silence struck the hall. The increasing doses made the symptoms look like an illness that required increasing treatment. Every additional treatment deepened the suppression. One pack leader stared at Ronan. Tonight's demonstration. Alara nodded. The king did not need to die. He needed to remain alive long enough to stand here, and fail to shift. The meaning moved through the room. A weakened king could be challenged. A dead king could not be publicly exposed as unfit. Varric backed toward the table. This is speculation. Ronan spoke at last. The preparation records. A guard placed them beside the ledger. Access to the altered batch narrowed through the authorized medical chain Varric controlled. Combined with the resealed packets, repeated contaminated doses, his insistence on increasing them, and the concentrated mixture he had attempted to administer immediately before the required demonstration, the pattern no longer depended on Alara's word. Varric looked around the hall for support. None came. Ronan did not roar or lunge at him. Detain him. The guards moved. Varric's authority vanished before he could reach the doors. Ronan gripped the edge of the table as another tremor passed through him. His wolf still had not returned. But no one in the hall was looking at his weakness the same way anymore. Alara looked at the first cup, the ledger, and the broken seal laid together beneath the hall lights. 25 healers had searched for a disease. A waitress had noticed the treatment. And now everyone could see what 1 minute of attention had begun. 3 days later, Ronan could feel his wolf again. Not fully. The first sign was nothing dramatic. Only a low, familiar presence returning beneath his skin after days of silence. His tremors had weakened as the suppressive compound left his body, and the royal healers who had helped verify Alara's evidence now monitored his recovery without pretending they could hurry it. The gathering had ended without the demonstration deciding his rule. The evidence had explained why he could not shift, and Varric remained detained pending formal judgment under pack law. The other healers were not punished for failing to recognize what had happened. They had treated symptoms produced by medicine they had every reason to believe was legitimate. Ronan changed the system that had allowed that trust to become a weapon. He summoned Alara to the same dining chamber where she had stopped his cup. A document waited on the table. Alara read it twice. You want me to oversee medicinal intake? And supply verification. I am not a healer. I know. Then it needs to say that. Ronan's eyebrows lifted. Alara pulled the document closer. I won't diagnose illnesses I wasn't trained to diagnose. I can inspect ingredients, verify sealed supplies, track preparation custody, and flag discrepancies. Medical decisions remain with qualified healers. A faint smile touched his mouth. You're negotiating with your Alpha King. You offered me responsibility. Responsibility needs boundaries. He took the document back. Agreed. The answer came without argument. Alara had entered the palace as a waitress whose safest talent was remaining unnoticed. She would not leave one kind of dependence only to accept another disguised as gratitude. Ronan seemed to understand. When I gave you that minute, he said, I thought desperation had made me willing to listen. To anyone. Alara glanced toward him. What changed? You were wrong about the storeroom. That inspired confidence. It did. She stared at him. Ronan's smile deepened slightly. Because you admitted it. Varric defended every conclusion as if his rank made it true. You kept separating what you knew from what you suspected. His expression grew serious. I trusted you before I knew whether trusting you would save my position. Alara remembered him walking into the gathering hall without his wolf, carrying evidence instead of certainty. That was dangerous. Yes. You could have lost everything. So could you. The silence between them changed. Ronan stepped closer, but stopped before the distance became an assumption. What happens between us now doesn't belong to the council, my rank, or what anyone thinks I owe you. Alara held his gaze. What are you asking? Whether I may know you when neither of us is trying to survive the next hour. Something warm moved through her chest. Not obligation. Choice. You may, she said. Slowly, Ronan agreed. Later, when the revised appointment document had been signed and the room had emptied, a servant brought them tea. The ordinary silver cup made Alara stop. Ronan noticed. Without drinking, he picked it up and held it toward her. 3 days earlier, 25 healers had watched an Omega Waitress put her hand on the Alpha King's medicine and wondered who she thought she was. Now Ronan waited. Alara accepted the cup. She breathed in once, carefully. Tea. Clean water. Nothing underneath. Her eyes met his. It's fine. Ronan took the cup back. Only then did the Alpha King drink.